Hey, it's Terry, your favorite no bullshit artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terry Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. What's up, folks? Thank you for returning to another episode of Between the Two of Us, a little spinoff from Terry Talks, where I invite special guests from all walks of life in the art world to help sort of break down the tea in the art industry. So today we have a super special guest who I reached out to. I'd been following her on Instagram for quite some time and have seen her sort of do some transitions through different art related things in her journey. She'll explain a little bit further. I don't want to like drop all the bombs right now. As you know, I love to choose the juiciest topics. I want to get as much tea for you as possible to make being a freelancer in the art world just like a little less mysterious, a little less risky, a little less intimidating, especially when it comes to galleries, especially when it comes to the acceptances into residencies and all of the things that we do on a daily basis. So I'm really glad that she is gracing us with her presence and giving us a little bit of her time. She also has, many things on her plate. So today's topic is going to be to demystify the gallery curator artist relationship. It's a good one, folks. So we're going to be talking to Marlee Katz. And she's an accomplished art liaison and gallerist in Brooklyn, New York, soon to be in Miami. Womp womp. I mean, we do love Miami, but we also really love Brooklyn. As you know, I'm in Bed-Stuy. She gained a comprehensive knowledge of the art world while working with an art advisor, where she curated exhibitions at Park Hyatt's gallery space. She also placed artwork with interior design firms and at Viacom's offices. In 2020, and this is how I actually found her on Instagram, she founded the Late Chotki Gallery in Brooklyn, hosting 30 exhibitions and receiving recognition in publications such as Harper's Bazaar, What, ArtNet, and Cultured Magazine. Katz now, and this is what we're going to talk about a lot today, is currently focusing on her new venture, Collect Bean, an online platform that showcases and supports artists directly from their studios through monthly curated launches. And tomorrow, she's got a new launch coming in for April, coming in hot with a new collection, and she'll definitely be talking a lot about that as well. So let's bring her in, and we'll get into the topics. We'll get all the tea. I'm going to be asking her some juicy questions. As you know, I do not hold back, folks. And hello, Marlee's with us.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? So I just gave you the grand introduction. And
Amazing.
let everybody know who you are, what you're up to. And before we dive into the gallery curator artist relationship and
Great.
all of the nuances of what that looks like, the marriage, I want to give you a chance to talk about Collect Bean a little bit.
Yes.
And I just mentioned that you are launching a new collection tomorrow for the April month. So let's dive into that, share all the good things, promote yourself.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. Thank you. So I know you shared a little bit about what Collect Bean is, but each month, a collection is launched on the first Friday of the month at 10 a.m. Eastern. And it's a collection of 10 to 14 pieces from artists that I love. I don't care if they have an MFA. I don't care if they were self-taught. I just love them and I have a relationship with them. And I want their work to be seen. It deserves to be seen. And in that, I'm also making the collecting process more transparent, easy to digest. You can collect immediately. There's no wait list. There's no who's in your collection. Everyone gets access. Everyone can collect these artists. And I want people to know that you don't have to buy a print. You don't have to buy a photograph. You can have a really beautiful original painting or drawing from an emerging artist. And it's easy.
One thing I love about, and of course, during the pandemic, everyone kind of went virtual and all of the exhibitions went virtual and curators kind of had to pivot majorly. But moving forward today, one thing that I think has kind of broken the glass ceiling is making sure that people who felt intimidated to walk into a white space, like a prestigious gallery, now don't have to really feel that way. because
Absolutely.
they can, look at your virtual launch and browse around
Mhm.
wherever they are, and also not feel like someone's watching them, because I think that that's
Yeah,
a huge part of it, right? I'm maybe a 22-year-old, I don't have a million in the bank to buy a $60,000 piece,
exactly.
whatever, and I don't want somebody like judging me or watching me or like,
100%.
so I
100%.
I love that.
And that's who I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of someone who's like maybe got a little extra money, doesn't know how to navigate this world, and I want to make it easy for them. And I think when you go into a gallery and no one says hello to you, you don't feel comfortable asking for prices. It makes it so
Well,
scary and intimidating, and it's cold. And I don't want people to feel like they don't have access and they can't get answers. And I think such a big part of collecting is education. And if people don't feel comfortable asking, they're never going to learn and they're never going to be comfortable. So the digital space kind of like mitigates all of that, which is
yeah.
really nice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, mentioning the not saying hello. I remember
Yeah.
walking to a very, very well-known gallery on Bowery
Mhm.
and asking for a price list, because I love to do my
Mhm.
little like
Yeah.
I'm so nosy. I love to do my research, and I was like, I want to know what the price range in
Mhm.
this fucking room is, and they wouldn't give it to me.
Yeah. I know exactly who you're speaking
Yeah,
of. I
well, I
just
know you
can't say it.
do. Like they wouldn't give it to me. I was like, how do you know what's in my pocket? I could put down a credit card right now and you would have no idea.
Yeah.
I could know fucking President Obama and you just missed out on my client.
Exactly. Exactly. I always, when I had my gallery, anyone that walked in, I'd always talk to them. I'd always answer questions. I would talk at them. I'd be like, "This is the show. This is what's going on," and like you never know who's walking through that door. And if you teach someone something or someone that had a really good experience walking into the space, I mean, word of mouth is everything. Our
Oh
industry
my
is
God.
really small. So people talk, people know if people aren't friendly or spaces are unwelcome. And I think it used to be okay that it was that way. Now
Yeah,
it's not. It's definitely
no,
shifted.
it's definitely not okay. And I think
Not
that
okay. Yeah.
part of what is like the intimidating thing is if you're
Mhm.
not in the elite or a socialite in the art world, how,
Right.
like, then how do you have the access? Like, that's kind of
Yeah.
fucked, right? So we're going to get into it. We're going to demystify this marriage,
Great.
because it's a marriage between you and your clients and you and the people that you help promote and that you
Mhm.
like adore and love and stand
Yeah.
by. Um, we can kind of go over like the do's and don'ts. I
Sure.
obviously am going to pick your brain for everyone and all the artists
Mhm.
out there on reaching out, emails, doing your research, the
Mhm.
relationship itself, like how do you keep that going? I mean, these are all like
Mhm.
general topics, right?
Of course.
How to's, do nots, tips, advice for
Mhm.
making that intro connection. Like there's always like, do I email, cold email? Do I not? Do I walk in with my like
Mhm.
batch of work? Like, what is it? And then of course we'll get into like collect bean and how you actually pick your
Sure.
artists, like what things you definitely look
Mhm.
for, because I'm sure that they're pretty, you know, I guess in terms of like a pretty generic, kind of list of things that most
Mhm.
curators may look for.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, dive into any part of that.
Okay. Amazing. Um, I think the first thing is, as an artist, if you want to get your name out there, you need to get people into your studio. Like, you need people to see your work. I always think going to openings, having that like face recognition and people getting to know you is so important. But if you're not getting people into your studio to see your work regularly, you're not going to get a show or an opportunity. So I always tell artists, figure out the galleries you like, follow them on Instagram, figure out who the directors are there, follow them on Instagram, engage with them, send them a DM. Hey, I love your programming. I think it really aligns with my practice. This is what I'm working on. Are you free on this day at this time to come to my studio? Don't ask them if they are free for a studio visit. Give them a date and a time so that they have to say yes or no. And like, it just makes it easier. Give them the concrete details. So I think that's kind of the smartest thing that artists can do is get the people and the galleries that they like in their door to see their work. And from there, that's where you're starting to build. And I've worked with so many artists where we've had big galleries come in because we kind of kept reaching out to them. And these artists got in group shows at really big spaces. And it was because we kept reaching out to these people. We kept pushing for them. And finally, the right people got in the door. And all it really takes is one person. And
Yeah.
then that's all you need. That's all you need. One collector, one person in your corner, and it can, get you to where you need to be.
I love how, and of course I'm an extrovert, like I think you
Mhm.
are, like in terms of having those conversations.
Yeah.
Not only does it take practice, it's not like, the first time I networked was like the easiest thing.
No, it's hard.
By nature, I could work a room, right? So
Yeah.
I love how casually you just described it, because to me, that's like a very kind of simple, like ABC
Yeah.
way of just saying, hey, I love what you do. I feel like this might be a good like relationship, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And start the conversation and lead the conversation. I think that's the most
Absolutely.
important part, because the intimidation factor for people reaching out makes it seem like they are not at the same level as a curator or
Mhm.
gallerist. And so if you're posing yourself as the sort of the weakling when
Mhm.
you have the artwork, I think that starts to create that hierarchy that we've had for many years. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And I think when people realize that everyone's on the same playing field and that we're all just human beings, like trying to make ends meet, trying to show artists, trying to meet people, it makes it less intimidating. And I always tell artists, like, the worst thing that happens is someone doesn't respond to you. Who gives a shit?
right,
Who cares?
right, right.
Exactly. That's
There
the
are
worst
plenty.
case scenario. I know. So that's the thing. I'm like, there's no harm in reaching out and getting, your foot in the door. If the person doesn't respond, that's the worst thing that happens. And that's not even a bad thing whatsoever.
Yeah. And listen, if
Yeah.
they're, you could tell if a gallery is active on Instagram.
Yeah.
You can tell if maybe they have an intern running their social media. You can tell if the director is even semi-active. I mean, I've reached out to people through DM. I've reached
Hmm.
out through email. Then maybe I sometimes go back to DM. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I should do an email. You never know. I think some people never know where to do the follow-up. And I'm like, hit all angles. It's
Absolutely.
really,
I
you
agree.
don't know.
I agree. And I think, I've done research on this and, just being in the workforce in the world, sometimes it takes like 10 plus touch points to get someone to respond to you. And mind you, I think that's a little excessive. I would never harass someone 10 times,
Totally,
but
totally.
you got to harass someone like 4 times sometimes.
I
And I
agree.
agree. Hitting them on a DM, hitting them in an email, like use your resources. And if you don't hustle and do that outreach, nothing's going to happen.
Absolutely. So I'm even thinking like I just wrote down like I need to hit someone up that I emailed in the DMs. Let them know,
Yeah.
hey, maybe this shit drowned in your email box. I know that you just launched something. Like
Mhm.
I still would love to meet with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes people miss things. Sometimes people forget to respond. And on Instagram, if you're not set up as a business, you can't put markers on red. So, like, if you don't have the time to respond, you're kind of shit out of luck. So, like,
Right.
you got to try it all.
I also think that sometimes artists don't always like, we're so consumed, right? I'm the artist. We're so consumed with what I want, where I
Yep.
want to go. And we don't always put ourselves in their shoes, who they're dealing with, how many people they're dealing with. I mean, that's why I
Hmm.
wanted you to come on the show. I'm like, okay, I want to hear from her perspective, what shit
Hmm.
she's dealing with and on the back end stuff.
Yep.
So moving into, right, that's like the introductory, that's like the putting your foot in there and leading
Hmm.
that conversation. And sort of like, I don't, to me that doesn't reflect a cold email if you've done that research.
Yes.
How can artists be a little bit more savvy when it comes down to who to reach out to? Not that they're just a
Absolutely.
fan of the gallery, but like, because you could be a fan and
Of
still
course.
not be
Of
aligned.
course. Yeah. I mean, I think, if you like love David Werner and you're emerging, obviously it doesn't make
Right.
sense to reach out to someone there. I think the biggest thing you can do is look at the galleries on the Lower East Side, look at these artist run spaces. There's a lot of new things in Brooklyn, lots of new things popping up in Tribeca. Do your research, figure out what programs you like, where these artists came from, if they're in the same like level of their career as you. And then you can make an educated decision of, okay, this gallery's in lines with me. They're showing emerging artists. We've got similar styles. Their last show was an artist I know. If you have those connections after doing research, then it makes sense to reach out. And don't reach out necessarily to the gallery Instagram page. Figure out who the director is. Follow them on Instagram. DM the actual person. That's so much easier. Like, again, hit them in both angles. But if you can find the actual human being that you know, is running the space. Maybe you have mutual friends. Maybe you know an artist that they know. That's going to give you that access and point of entry. And I think that's the biggest thing you can do is do your research and figure out what galleries are showing work that aligns with what you're doing. And if they aren't aligning with what you're doing, they're probably not the right people to reach out to.
Right, right. And also it, you know, in some ways it makes you look bad because you didn't do your due diligence in getting to know the gallery. I mean, I've had people reach out to me that think I still make art. I haven't made like I haven't made art for sale. You could just look at my Instagram. Like I promoted a piece of art in like the last probably 6 years, right?
Yeah.
And I still have people, I'm like, did you actually look at my Like, it would have taken you 30 seconds.
2 seconds, exactly. I agree. And that's what I'll do with artists a lot is I'll sit down with them and I'll be like, let's go through some galleries that you like and figure out if they make sense. And we'll sit down and we'll discuss, does this gallery make sense? Are they in line with your practice? And then I'll be like, hey, what about this place? This place, you know, shows a lot of people that are kind of in a similar vein as you. Like, that could be a good person. I know someone there. So, like, that's what we'll kind of do is work together because I'm happy to help, but you also have to do your homework too and kind of figure out the landscape and what's going on in the market. And then I can come in, kind of use my expertise and help you. And then we kind of come up with a plan together of who should we reach out to? What should the DM look like? Let's try this, let's try that. And, you know, sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, that's what I love doing.
You get those emails. Yeah. I'm sure you get those emails all the time of people who are like, oh, she's got this like virtual space, right? It's clean, it's beautifully curated, like everything looks super professional and up there. And I'm like, what do those emails look like when they're not to you, when you're like, wow, you're totally like, you've missed the mark completely?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I only really work with people that I know. And mind you, if I want to get to know someone, I'll reach out to them and get to know them. I've only had very few instances, I think maybe 1 or 2 in my whole career where someone's reached out to me as an artist and I've worked with them. The first artist I ever worked with that reached out to me was Jack Schur. He is absolutely fantastic. And he cold emailed Chachki when the gallery was open and sent a work, and his work was fucking great, really talented. And I was like, this is the one and only time that I probably will throw this person into our show because he's really good and he's so nice. So that's very atypical. Like, never ever happens.
Do you think that is pretty common for other curators in terms of how they choose their people?
I think it depends on the format. I know a lot of spaces will do open calls and that's how they source artists.
But with the cold email, like in terms of if they don't do an open call, you know, I mean, will they lean more towards, I mean, I would assume, I guess, that they would lean more towards the people that they know, just like you said. You've got this database of really reliable professional people that you're like, okay, you are up to par, you've got your shit together, I love your work, I want to support this. Like, you know, aside from some of those emails, you know, that because artists still, they will send out a cold email. It will be full of like, my portfolio, here's my CV, like I'm going to throw all of this at you.
Absolutely. And I get those sometimes, and sometimes I just delete them. Sometimes I'll respond and say, hey, you know, I don't really take submissions. I don't operate that way. And, you know, so I had someone reach out to me recently that was friends with an artist that I showed, and she cold emailed me. And I think she's very young. She's just starting out, but her work is cool. Like, there's something there. I'm curious. So I sat down with her and we talked for like an hour about the art world. She like lives in Florida, in Tampa, doesn't know much about the art world and just like wants to learn. So I was like, let me invest in this person. Her work's good. She's cool. She's nice. Like, let's give it a go. So sometimes it happens where like there's something there and we vibe and I want to navigate and support. And, you know, we just talked for an hour about the art market, her painting style, her website, just like a little bit of everything. And it felt good. I really enjoyed that. I love helping with those kinds of things. So whenever something comes my way, like I do look at it. If it is work that doesn't make sense for what I'm doing, where it's like completely abstract and, you know, it doesn't make sense, I don't typically, you know, engage. But that's the same thing we were speaking about before, is like, do your homework, like look at who the person's showing, look at who they're working with, and kind of, you know, catch the vibe and do your homework. And I think it's such an easy thing to do. And a lot of people, I think, get excited and just want to like spew things out into the abyss. But I'd rather someone send like 10 really well articulated, curated emails that speak to why you like a specific person or space versus just like throwing a bunch of things into the abyss.
Yeah, and I think the emails that artists, like those cold emails that they're used to sending is like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I will look so professional if I have this like very, very tight-knit package and I just dump it into that email all at once without even knowing if this is going to like translate or even like
Right,
convert to even a conversation, I
right.
think that that's a big mistake, instead of just like that light introduction that you mentioned.
Yes, I agree. And I'd rather someone reach out to me. Like someone reached out to me yesterday, so nice. She like sent me a piece of her work and like sent me the Instagram like image of the work. She's like, just wanted to let you know, like this is my work. I, saw you speak here, blah blah. So like there was a little bit of a connection there, and
Yeah.
we had a little rapport. I don't know if time and styles totally align, which is totally fine. But she let me see her work up front, which I appreciated because I'm not clicking on a folder, I'm not downloading anything, I
Right.
don't have to read a whole thing. Like I want to kind of like put it in front of me and make it easy, just like in anything else in the world. Make it easy for the person to digest what you're putting out there.
Yeah, and that's something that I, talk about. I mean, the things that I go over with my clients, right, are
Mm-hmm.
like they will show me, an open call. And then we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about like, oh, well, okay, is this worth investing,
Sure.
even the application fee? Because obviously you could spend all your money on application fees and not get into one, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're not even aligned because you didn't look at the requirements or you didn't
Yeah.
think further than the application to look at what kind of work they have in the
Mm-hmm.
actual gallery. So there is this trail of like things you need to do in order to even hit that introductory mark.
Yep.
Um, which I don't think that people realize. Like, I would never just of course, I used to, as an emerging
Mm-hmm.
artist, probably just blindly take up any open call. And I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll
Right.
get here, maybe I'll get in there. And then realize after, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't even want to be in that space. Like, why
Yeah.
even, like, that's not even like they have African work. Like, I have nothing in my portfolio that speaks
Right.
that language. Um,
Exactly.
so I think that that's also like on the artist side, that's definitely are bad sometimes for like not taking those steps
Mm-hmm.
first. So let's get into how you choose your themes for new collections on a monthly basis.
Sure.
What are you thinking about on the curation side, and tell us
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about your creative process?
Yeah, absolutely. So collecting isn't based on themes. I show work because I like it. Luckily, they typically look cohesive because
Yes,
I
they
like
do.
the similar style of work.
I've noticed.
Um, but I like not giving artists when they're making one piece for this and they're not making a whole body of work. I don't want them to feel restricted. And I like giving the opportunity to them to make something that they're feeling excited about in that moment and showing something that like really is tried and true to like them in their practice. So that's the only restrictions I give artists in Collect Bean. In the future, there's going to be a couple things being a little bit more thematic. I'm bringing some artists in to help curate. So things are going to shift a little bit, but it really just stems from, in the digital space, figurative work typically is easier to digest. And that's something that I learned when I started my first gallery in 2020. It was COVID. Everyone was at home. They were on their phones. They were buying art. And they like figurative art's easy. You don't have to figure out what the texture is as much. You don't have to figure out what these like white lines are all over the place. Like it's just easier to digest. And I think that's kind of where that stemmed from is figurative, color focused, a lot of it's narrative based. And that's kind of what I'm looking for is work that I like, work that I would want to live with. I live with so much art all over my walls. A lot of these artists I've worked with before. Um, and there's not any like specific like pattern or system in place. It's really just working with people that I like, people that are communicative and responsive, people
Yes.
that are engaged, and people that I really believe in what they're doing. And in that, they believe in what I'm doing, and we have a really good relationship. I'm very, very focused on trust and building a relationship with an artist. I never, ever try to be, we're going to show your work once and I'm never going to speak to you again. I don't operate that way. I want to build a relationship. I want an artist to utilize me however they feel comfortable. Certain artists that I've worked with, I've stepped in and I'm starting to manage them, helping them with all their business sides of things that they don't know how to do, or, you know, helping them get an opportunity at a gallery. So like however artists want to work together and utilize, that's kind of where my head's at and how I work with artists. And each collection kind of comes together organically of who I'm speaking to, who's on my radar, who I want to stay connected with, and who's staying connected with me. And that's kind of how it works. There's no like specific checklist or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that even for some of the more quiet galleries that have great reputations, I would think that those relationships are the first people at the top of mind that they're going to reach out to.
Yes.
Especially for like whether it's like a very important show, because you've listed a lot of characteristics that a person needs to have, not necessarily an artist, but a person in business needs to have that extreme communication style. They are responsive and they are on it. And when you ask for something, they're sending it nice and clean, and there's no like fuss around it, right? Because
absolutely. I think the hardest thing is a lot of artists don't ever get taught that business side of things, and that's where I really like to step in and help, because I mean, I have a BFA. I never was taught how to sell my work or the marketing side or how to set up an LLC or like all of these things that are so important, and that's where I really love to step in. But I often find, you know, creatives are always kind of all over the place. They maybe aren't as communicative or responsive. And I obviously want artists to just paint and do their thing. But there's something so important about having a little bit of that business acumen and a little bit of that business savvy to just, you know, like respond quickly, not take 10 days. And like that's stuff that kind of throws me off. If you're going to take, you know, 48 hours to respond to a text message, I know we're going to have a hard time working together, because no one should take 48 hours to respond to a text message unless, God forbid, something horrible has happened. But, you know, that's just like the communication and the rapport is like very key to me. I work with a lot of artists that are, you know, some are more established, some are just starting out, some are technically perfect, some are still figuring it out. And like, that doesn't matter to me. If I like you and I like what you're doing and I believe in you and your practice, that's all that matters to me.
I love that.
That's kind of like my mindset.
There needs to be more, I think, more gallerists and curators out there with that like openness of looking at all, you know, all parts of the spectrum in the artist community, because even artists, right, we're demystifying this process just by talking to each other right now. But like, I think that a lot of artists will assume, oh, I'm not going to apply to that because my portfolio isn't like full circle yet, or I'm not going to apply to that because I don't have 20 pieces yet. You know, they think that they have this narrative in their heads of what their shit is supposed to look like. So there are missed opportunities, you know, with people like you who are very open to it. And, you know, one thing that I've always said to my clients and just to the art world is that people buy from people. And it's the same thing in any relationship in the art world, is that you have explained to us that I like people and I want to work with people that I trust. I can't tell you how many fucking times I've heard of galleries, you know, emergency, like the gallery shut down and has my work. The gallery lost my work and I can't reach them. You know, that I've seen that post.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Even artists I'm working with sometimes will say, you know, I had something in a show, I was supposed to have it back, I don't know where it is. And, you know, like, mind you, I had a really wonderful gallery and it did close, but I always gave artists back their work. I paid everyone within 3 business days. I always communicated. I value those relationships and just being like a true blue good business person more than anything else. And like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Like, that's just the most important thing. And it's so disappointing to see when stuff like that happens, because these artists, like, most artists aren't, you know, rolling in the dough. Like, they need the money, they need the work, and it's their livelihood.
They need to sell it somewhere else. You know,
exactly. And that's just something I never understood. I don't understand why people do things like that. But
you know, it's a fucking crazy place to leave anyone. Like,
absolutely.
You know, it'd be like I'm a nurse and all of a sudden the hospital's closed and I don't have a paycheck this week. I mean, that's fucking
Exactly.
it's bananas to me. But also a lot of this is like, you know, I mean, we're in a very like intimate world with our artwork with people, and we're talking about like
Yeah.
experiences and like, oh, this artwork, you know, was dedicated to this person or whatever. It's like a lot of people have attachment to those
Of
things.
course.
So that's even, you know, kind of on the other end of the spectrum. So when I see artists who like, you know, I'm not blaming an artist for a situation like that for happening, but at the same time, I'm like, did you like grow a relationship with that person enough to maybe see some red flags? Because I'm super
Yeah.
picky. I am like a typical like sort of you know, like I'm a New Yorker that has skeptical about everyone who walks in my
Well,
space.
you should be. You should be. And I think, you know, the biggest thing that I've noticed is a lot of artists sometimes will get so excited about an opportunity that they don't sign a consignment agreement.
Yes.
And I think anything in any business, if you're a freelancer, if you're in art, if you're not in art, you should never work with anyone unless you sign something.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Non-negotiable. You should see what their agreement is. You should make sure you're okay with it. I never ever love 6-month contracts. I think if you can't tell someone's work in a show, you shouldn't have it for that long. So there's so many little things that just building that business acumen. Like whenever I work with artists, I'm like 3-month or less consignment. Make sure you know who's paying for shipping. If you're paying for any shipping, there's a major problem. You should never pay to get your work anywhere. And, you know, a lot of artists will pay to get something because they're excited. They'll have a consignment agreement for a year and then their work's stuck in like a different country. Yeah. And then, or the gallery closes in that time period. So like all of these things are so important to like sit down and read the paperwork and know how to like negotiate and respond to those situations to, you know, put yourself in the best situation possible.
And, you know, when you are if you choose to get into a situation like that, let the excitement just curve all of your like real decision making. Cause I think also I've seen that happen where people are so fucking excited about the opportunity. Then they're in an exclusivity situation and they've got to pull shit off their website and they've got to, you know, they didn't know or all of those things because you're right. They didn't read the fine print or there wasn't.
Exactly. And stuff like that happens, unfortunately, all the time. I mean, I've worked with some very big galleries, and mind you, I will never ever name names, but I've had to beg them for pay artists or to pay us, and it took I think 8 months to get paid for something once, and I'm like these poor artists that are counting on this money that are expecting to be paid out in 30 days, which I still think is far too long. But there's a lot of things that if artists knew this more and took the time to book, like have that business acumen, reach out to me, reach out to you, reach out to anyone, just to learn these little things that would set them up to like really have like the ball back in their court.
Yes. Because like I said, you know, we were talking in the beginning about there not being any kind of hierarchy in these relationships. You know, the gallery needs you. And I've always said this, right? You have the artwork and, you know, you need the gallery. So it really be this equal relationship where you're providing, you know, you're both providing each other with a service and an opportunity, but a real opportunity is not one-sided. And so
I absolutely agree.
You know, I can appreciate Marlee, like your intent, your genuine, you know, business ship, you know, if that's even a word. So
I love it. We love a business ship.
Yes, exactly. We're going to wrap this up. I'm going to give you a nice juicy last question.
Perfect.
What's one thing you would share with artists that they don't know about, like a curator, like the BTS? Like, what is something that they just don't even realize happens? Shit you're dealing with on the opposite end of the spectrum that they would never even just consider?
It's a good question. I feel like I have so many different answers and I could go on a big tangent.
No, spill the tea, girl.
I mean, I think a lot of it is what we're speaking about, like doing your homework and doing your research and asking questions. I'll have artists ask me a lot of time, I'm working with so-and-so gallery. Do you know anything about them? And a lot of the times people will just say yes and take the opportunity. But I've spoken with so many artists who've been like, I've shown at this gallery and then they didn't pay me and then this happened and this happened. And then like some other artists will tell me about this gallery wants to show their work and then they don't do their homework. So like you need to ask people. It is a very small world that we're in. The art world is minuscule.
Yes.
Ask people if you have any icky feelings, if anything feels weird, if anyone says anything to you about someone that feels remotely like unsettling or just off-putting, don't take the opportunity. Another one will come.
You and I have talked, you know, we've gossiped about some people in the art industry. You and I never even knew each other.
I know. I mean, I think when being professional, I think is very important. I think there's always a place and a time to spill the tea and have the gossip in any industry.
Totally.
It's like, it's fun. You got to do it, whatever. But if anyone you're ever working with rubs you the wrong way, makes you feel uncomfortable, someone tells you something about them, don't work with them. Period. End of story. Like that's, I think, like a non-negotiable, regardless of how important or cool or famous or whatever they are. You know, there's, you know, I, again, won't name any names, but I would partner with this gallery a lot on the West Coast. And someone recently posted this gallery stopped responding to them. They didn't pay them. Their work went missing. Their work got damaged. And I had a couple funky things happen with this gallery too. And, you know, I think as you learn, you kind of learn to go with your gut. And when stuff like that happens, just because they're big, just because they have a big collector base, just because they're Nepo babies, whatever, like you don't have to work with them. And something else will come. It doesn't matter. And I think just being really mindful and doing your homework for every opportunity that comes your way and making sure that the people that you work with are investing in you and aren't just like one and doneing you. And I know, again, thinking of another gallerist that, you know, invested really deeply in an artist that I worked with, their work didn't do very well at the show and the person stopped speaking to them. And like that red flag.
There's so many factors when something doesn't like
there's so many factors.
Like
of course.
It could be raining outside and your opening was a shit, you know, like no one showed up. I mean, there's so many factors.
You never know. And I think a lot of it is if you actually like an artist and want to invest in them and their career, you're gonna have to show them more than once.
Yeah. No, I think that's the loyalty. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's also in terms of like when you are building relationships with the collectors, it's the same kind of like loyalty. Yeah. I'm gonna give you a 10% on your next purchase, you know, just like those like kind of like loyalty rewards, you know what I mean?
Of course, I give people a 10% discount. If you ask for it, I'll give it to you. I'm happy to lose that 10% so that you feel comfortable. I don't care. I want you to buy the piece. I want the artist to get paid. I don't care. Like I think that speaks volumes and makes people feel like they're getting, you know, getting something out of it. And I think people like that. I mean, even when you're shopping online and they're like 10% discount, like it feels good. You're like, I got it on sale.
Free shipping always get someone.
Exactly.
Like you might lose $20, you might lose $50, but it's $500.
Yep.
Like what if it's $600? You know what I mean? So we have to all weigh out our things, but I do think like that first date, you know, if we think about a relationship and I see red flags in this guy, there's no fucking way we're going on a second date. I mean, I've had someone literally like I just went on a date last week on Hinge, and this guy was just like stupid. I was like, all right. I started to just get drunk at the bar with my friends anyway.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah. I was like, this is not going to work. And I actually said to him, I'm like, listen, you're still fucking around. I'm looking for a husband.
Exactly. But you wouldn't have known that unless you went on a million dates before, did your homework, learned from mistakes, and then now you're ready for the real business. And I was the same way when I met, you know, my husband. You kind of have to, you have all these horrible things happen, you figure it out and you navigate it. And from every single one of those experiences, you must learn and you must take it with you.
Marlee, he still asked me on a second date. He goes, well, would you still go out with me on a second date? I was like, no.
What a schmuck.
I appreciate the persistence, but no.
Yeah. Not, get not, but no.
Right. And the red flag, when I'm comparing this to the relationship, you know, like the art world, the red flag was he wouldn't engage in a lengthy conversation with me on Hinge. He just wanted to meet immediately. And I was a YOLO. It was like a YOLO moment. We're just going to go to the bar near me. It's going to be
a good time. Yeah. You never know, but
I like a day or two of a conversation.
Of course, so that you're not going out with a serial killer. Of course.
And also it says all over my profile, I'm looking for a husband. Like, you didn't even read my Hinge Instagram.
Right. It's the same thing as with reaching out to gallery. You didn't do your research. You didn't do your homework. Everyone needs to do their homework. People get lazy. Just do your homework. It's easy.
Oh my God, Marlee, you're the best. I love your business model. I love your ethics.
Thank you.
Everything. And Marlee, hopefully you and I will be doing something together, whether it's whether it's we're bringing our clients together, whatever it is. I know you're moving to Miami, but who knows? I might be coming there for vacay. You never
know. And I was just speaking with someone yesterday. The art world's small. Everything is connected. Yes. I am expanding my network. I've got my New York people. I'm going to have my Miami people. Yeah. So many more opportunities. So I'm seeing it as positive, as a big light and a big, happy thing happening. And I think we're definitely going to be working together in the future.
And what's great is that you don't have to close up shop anywhere because you're virtual.
Exactly. So you've
gotten all the tips, all the tea, all the gossip from us. I hope that something here in the conversation resonated between the two of us. And thank you for coming back to another episode of Terry Talks. If you make sure to subscribe, if this is a new podcast, as always, we appreciate your rating and your comments and your shares and all of that. I will be leaving all of Marlee's contacts on the bottom, and see you soon. Thank you so much, Marlee.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another unfiltered episode of Terry Talks. I've also got some free resources on my website that will help make your life a lot easier as an artist in business. You can also check out my services or apply to work together. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and sign up for my newsletter for more art industry information. See you on the gram.